There used to be a time when organized protest had an impact, a desired impact. Martin Luther King and the numerous civil rights protests, the most famous being the gathering at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 for his I Have a Dream speech. The protest in the late 60s, early 70s against the Vietnam War. The military back then, they were drafting young kids, forcing them to go to war. Many people in the country were against the war in Vietnam, especially after it dragged on for so many years. The gay rights protest in the 90s and 2000s. People fighting for their right to be married, health insurance rights, fighting for their rights to adopt children. Now, you might not have agreed with it. You might not have agreed with the Vietnam protest, but these people were fighting for something. They had a reason to be protesting, a legitimate reason. Now, contrast those protests with the protests that we see today. You guys remember Occupy Wall Street? What was that? 10 or so years ago? What was the point of Occupy Wall Street? What rights were they fighting for? It's only been 10 years, I don't remember. The BLM riots 2 years ago. Why were they protesting? What did they accomplish? They were supposedly protesting against police brutality. They were pretending it was some kind of epidemic, like it was in the 1960s. The only thing BLM accomplished was getting police defunded, causing crime rates to surge in major cities across America. The very people they were supposedly fighting for, they made their lives exponentially worse. Every June during the month of Woke Christmas, we see all these pride marches. Why? What the hell are they marching for? They were already given their rights. Now, of course, now they're fighting for the right to brainwash your children. But when you look at protests of the past, the reason they were effective is because they were fighting for legitimate causes. They were protesting issues the vast majority of people could get behind and support. Modern day protests are 100% ineffective. These kids aren't fighting for anything. They're paid activists. You interview some of these shit fucks marching the streets in protest, they have no idea why they're even there. We were given another example of a virtue signaling protest yesterday afternoon in Pennsylvania. Imagine for a second, you're an alumni of Penn. You have a teenage son or daughter aspiring to follow in their father's footsteps and attend his alma mater next year. You take your kid to homecoming weekend to show them what the Penn experience is all about. You know, the Penn experience. Maybe they'll get lucky and run into legendary female athletes like Leah Thomas. "Oh, Daddy, look over there. It's Leah Thomas. Leah, please do me this honor and sign my mustache." Friday night, you're doing shots of Don's Lemonade with legendary Leah. Saturday afternoon, it's time for the homecoming game against one of your biggest rivals, Yale. The Ivy League is full of these legendary rivalries, each school battling it out to see who can be the most woke. You guys might have Leah Thomas, but we can do better than that. Let me introduce you to Isaac Hennig. Isaac went to bed last night with a tampon on her nightstand. In the middle of the night, she was visited by the woke fairy. The next morning, the tampon was replaced with a cucumber. Isaac is now a full-blooded American male, but still competes against the girls. You're at the football game. You sit through one of the most boring first halves of football that you've ever seen. The energy in the stadium is electric. Hundreds of aspiring shitfucks screaming in agony over the sheer violence of American football. Why do they keep hitting each other? It's so violent. I don't understand this tackling thing. Instead of tackling each other, they should be tapping their opponent's bongo. Halftime rolls around. Even though you're in attendance at something that doesn't come close to resembling a college-level football game, calling Ivy League football college football, it's kind of like calling the activities in the WNBA dump basketball. But even with that being the case, you're in a football stadium, there are yard markers on the field, you have 22 birthing persons attempting to play woke football. At halftime, you're expecting to see a halftime show, right? I mean, it is kind of college football here. You're expecting to see the marching band, the cheerleaders, the dance team, which in the Ivy Leagues, the cheerleaders look like Rachel Levine and the dance team is filled with birthing persons like Jackie Mahomes, meaning you're going to see one hell of a show. But instead of the dancing Jackies, the hundreds of people in attendance yesterday witnessed a protest at halftime. Watch for yourself.
Here's what's happening around the Avenue today, presented by BNC. At the half, it's Cornell 17, Brown 7. The second, Hartman 7, Columbia 6. Last night, Apollo Princeton 37, Harvard 10. Independence Blue Cross, a proud sponsor of Penn Athletics and the Patrick Center. On and off the field, we're covered with the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region. Plus, see a doctor from home with free 24/7 virtual care. Learn more at IBX.com. For the most up-to-date information on Penn football, visit the official website of the Quakers.
Casey, what the hell was that? I don't understand what they were protesting. Yeah, they don't either. There are varied reports coming out of Penn as to what cause they were fighting for or were against. My inside sources tell me some of these kids were protesting the new bath mandate. As you guys know, shitfucks only shower on Woke Bath Wednesday. The handful of normal students at Penn, they were tired of being exposed to the filthy aroma of the dump divers. The administration implemented a mandate that all students are required to bathe at least one time a day. Perhaps they were protesting against that. Other sources are telling me there is a shortage of Preparation H on campus. They were given their weekly supply of cucumbers, but the bongo cream wasn't on the truck. Many students are understandably angry about having to deal with roid-raged bongos. That's an understandable reason to protest. All kidding aside, both of those issues are outlandish, ridiculous reasons to organize a protest. But I made it that way because the real reason these shitfucks were protesting is even more ridiculous. Are you ready? These kids were expressing their anger about the fact that Penn invests money into fossil fuels. They were protesting for environmental justice. What the hell is that? I've heard of social justice, racial justice, criminal justice, David justice. Lately, I keep hearing about environmental justice. What is that? I find it rather ironic that these kids protesting against the use of fossil fuels were doing so wearing shoes, which are made from oil. They were doing so wearing clothes made from oil. I would imagine most of them are driving vehicles that use oil. Those who don't own cars more than likely utilize the gas-powered broom for transportation, which also uses oil. What makes matters worse, this protest was allowed to go on for over an hour. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, officials at Penn knew about the protest beforehand. There was increased security at the game along with an installed fence. So, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You knew this was going to happen. Now, I realize it's difficult to stop 60, 65, 70 kids from rushing onto the field all at once. I get that. But once they're on the field, why did it take over an hour to get them removed? Only 14 of the 70 were arrested. Why? Why in the hell aren't all these kids being charged? This sets a very dangerous precedent. Now, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think officials at Penn were afraid of these kids. Cops could have had this shut down in a matter of minutes if they were given the okay to do so. They let these kids demonstrate for over an hour because they were afraid of them. They were afraid of the backlash if they silenced them. Well, KC, these kids have rights. They have the right to free speech. They have the right to peacefully protest. No, they don't. The Constitution doesn't give you the right to interrupt a private event on private property to spread your personal ideology. Do I have the right to walk into their halls of propaganda at Woke U and start up a protest? No. I think the only reason this ended when it did, and again, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think the only reason this ended is because normal people in the stadium were speaking out against it. Watch for yourself. This video was posted to Twitter by the group that organized the protest. fossil-free Penn. They captioned the video with, "Students are met with violence after peacefully protesting." Another student, interviewed by the Philadelphia Inquirer, detailed her traumatizing experience with police. "They were arresting me. They were yelling at me. They were screaming at me. It was terrible." "I'm sure they were. You were acting like a jackass. It's called consequences," something these kids know nothing about because they're never held accountable for their actions. Some of these kids have been camped outside the administration building for 39 days protesting fossil fuels. That's what they call Ivy League education. I know we joke around a lot about Woke U here on the channel, but just like Woke United Methodist is real, Woke U is also real. They don't call it Woke U, they call it college. They call it higher education. You enter an innocent 18-year-old ready to take on the world. 4 years later, you leave with a lifetime supply of Preparation H and a cucumber permanently inserted inside your bongo. But let me know what you think. Have protests lost their effectiveness? I mean, seriously, how many people's minds did these kids change yesterday on the use of fossil fuels? My guess is 0. Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.